thì nó cũng hơi khó được có cái độ công bằng, vì là cô không ra được quá nhiều version, mà các em nếu mà điền lại kể cả lớp face to face hay là offline thì cái mức độ ngồi cạnh nhau là rất là nhiều, và còn nếu mà các em làm online thì cũng không đảm bảo được hoàn toàn là công bằng. Thành ra là cô muốn thay hai cái small test bằng assignment. Is that alright?
Vâng ạ.
Ok. Cái thứ hai nữa là cô thấy các bạn đi học lecture rất là ít, thì có thể một khi nào đấy cô sẽ điểm danh đấy nhé. Em nhắc các bạn thế.
Thôi lúc mà mình chọn nhóm ấy thì là mình tự
Sao hả em?
xếp ạ?
Sao cơ? Em nói to lên cô không nghe cái gì hết đấy.
Thôi lúc mà mình chọn nhóm để làm bài assignment ấy thì là cô sắp xếp hay là bọn em tự chọn ạ?
Tự chọn em ạ.
Cô ơi, 4 người một nhóm cô nhá.
Không, 3 người thôi. 3 người một nhóm thôi các em nhé. 3 người một nhóm, cô sẽ ra đề trong 1-2 tuần tới. Cô bảo các bạn là các bạn đừng record lecture nhé. Và các bạn cũng không set up, please don't set up another meeting along with this one. Okay. Don't set up meeting. Okay. Don't set up meeting. And also please don't record. Cô muốn các bạn có khả năng ngồi take note và nghe giảng. Cô không muốn các bạn record lại nhé.
Em thưa cô là chọn người là chọn bạn là chọn cùng tút mình hay là khác tút được ạ?
Em có thể chọn khác tút cũng được.
Vâng ạ.
Các bạn có thắc mắc gì về vấn đề không? Cô hỏi các bạn luôn là kế hoạch học tuần sau của các em như thế nào? Các em học lịch như thế nào? Có lên trường nhiều không? Hay là
Online nhiều ạ.
gì có?
Bọn em học online hết ạ.
Học online nhiều ạ.
Học online hết à? Thế thì có lẽ là cô nghĩ là cô cũng chưa sure lắm, bởi vì cô cũng còn phải để confirm với cả cái quy định của khoa. Thế nhưng mà nếu mà các em cứ chờ cô thông báo nhé về lịch học tuần sau nhé. Nếu mà các em học online thì cô nghĩ là chắc là mình cũng học online, nhưng mà cũng phải chờ thêm cái quyết định của khoa như thế nào. Cô sẽ thông báo trên mạng, trên Google Classroom. Alright.
Em thưa cô, em vừa vào đấy ạ, em đang không hiểu là mọi người chia nhóm gì.
Okay. Before we start with the lecture, I show you the financial statement of financial position for Vinamilk of year 2019. Okay, just a second. Can you see the screen? Can you see the statement of financial position for Vinamilk of the year 2019? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. Now, điểm đầu tiên các bạn sẽ thấy là gì? The first thing you can see is in Vietnamese accounting standard, Vietnamese accounting system, we're going to reverse the order of the asset. Okay. Under IFRS, we see cash and cash equivalent at last. Here we see it first. Can you see here? Tiền và các khoản tương đương tiền là gì đây các bạn? Tiếng Anh là gì? Tiền là gì?
Cash and cash.
Cash and cash equivalent. Okay. The second thing you see here is short-term investment or short-term securities. Okay, short-term investment. Các khoản đầu tư ngắn hạn. And thirdly, you see các khoản phải thu ngắn hạn, short-term receivable. Okay. Under IFRS, it's going to be reversed. Receivable thì các bạn nhìn thấy phải thu từ khách hàng là gì đấy? Phải thu từ khách hàng là gì?
Account receivable.
Account receivable. Okay. Trả trước cho người bán thì cũng là một dạng account receivable. Okay. Short term deposit with the supplier is a kind of account receivable. Then you got phải thu về cho vay ngắn hạn là gì? Tiếng Anh là gì? Phải thu về cho vay ngắn hạn. Là short term note receivable. Ok. Sau đó chúng ta có other receivable. Nhưng các bạn nên nhớ là chúng ta còn có một cái khác. Là chúng ta có một cái important here is dự phòng phải thu khó đòi. Cái này trong tiếng Anh là gì các bạn?
Allowance for
doubtful account. So account receivable is always reported net of the allowance for doubtful account. Okay. So today's topic we're going to look at cash and cash equivalent and receivable. Okay. Receivable. You're going to learn short-term investment in financial accounting too. Right? I talked briefly about short-term security in the previous lecture, but today we in this course we not cover in this course. Okay, so I'm going to talk about cash and cash equivalent and receivable in this lecture. Okay. Let's turn to the lecture. So this is lecture four of your course of the course cash and receivable, and that's in chapter 7. Chapter 7 of your textbook. Chapter 7, and we talk about. Can you see the screen? Is that moving okay?
Yes.
Okay. So learning objective, after studying this chapter, you should be able to indicate how to report cash and the related items. How to report cash and cash equivalent. And we define receivable and explain the accounting issues related to the recognition. Khi nào thì receivable sẽ arise? When we're going to recognize the receivable. Do you know? When receivable is going to arise.
Khi mà mình cung cấp dịch vụ cho khách hàng và dịch vụ đấy.
When you sell goods or services on account to the customer, isn't it right? When you sell on account, okay? When you sell goods or services, you may receive the cash immediately or you may receive at a later date. If you make the sales now and you receive later, account receivable will arise. And you also can have you can have receivable when you lend money to someone in short term. Okay. And then we explain the accounting issues related to valuation of account receivable. Okay. Basically, valuation means you're going to determine the amount of allowance for doubtful account, amount of collectible amount. You determine the collectible amount of the receivable. How much you expect to collect. Okay, how much you expect to collect from the receivable. Right? Then you explain accounting issue and recognition, evaluation of note receivable. We only talk about a little bit about note receivable. Note receivable is, what is the difference between note receivable and account receivable? What is the difference between an account receivable and a note receivable? Các bạn có biết không?
I think account receivable is a short-term asset, current assets, and not receivable in non-current assets, and not receivable we will give interest.
Okay, not receivable. Now, normally it can be long term or short term. Okay, and it not the difference, the main difference between an account receivable and a note receivable is the note receivable, that is a writing, okay, a sign, that is a document signed by both parties. Okay, it's signed by the person you lend money to. Okay, so there is a promissory note. Okay, and the person borrow money will need to sign the note. Okay, and sign the note, and there normally interest involved. Okay, normally interest involved with the note. And then but basically we don't talk much about the note receivable in this course, because normally we talk on note receivable. Normally it can be short term or long term, but normally in accounting we deal with more with long term, because short term is very easy. Okay, short term you calculate simple interest. Okay, for short term note you calculate simple interest, whereas for long term note you need to discount. Okay, you need to discount, and therefore of long-term note receivable will be dealt in financial accounting too. In this course, I'm talking briefly about the short-term note, where the present value is determined by simple interest calculation. Okay. Then we talk about additional accounting issue related to account and note receivable. So here we have cash, reporting cash, summary of cash related item. We talk about receivable, recognition of account receivable, how we measure it, variable consideration. Variable consideration means the things like discount, rebate, hay là returns, okay, etc. So we measure how we measure account receivable. Normally for account receivable, we don't calculate interest. There is no interest. Okay, there can be discount, rebate, or returns. Okay, and we call it variable consideration. Okay, that's the receivable. Valuation of account receivable. We know that account receivable should be valued at less of the allowance for doubtful account. And we talk briefly about the direct write-off method, and we talk why the direct write-off method is not accepted. It's not accepted under IFRS. And then we demonstrate how the valuation of account receivable is determined under the allowance method. Note receivable, we talk briefly about the short-term note only, okay, and simple interest. Valuation of long-term note is determined by discount cash flow. Okay, we don't cover it in today's lecture. We don't cover it in financial accounting 1. It's only in financial accounting 2. And then we talk about other issues. Derecognition we don't talk about. We all briefly talk about presentation and analysis. Cash. So what is cash? We identify what item considered as cash. What is considered as cash held by a company? Okay, what is considered as cash, các bạn? What is cash? Cash can be the cash in our pocket or in the bank, in saving account, checking account, etc. But how we determine many things? It can be check, it can be cash in the pocket, it can be many things like draft, money order, etc. How we determine cash? Okay, what is considered cash and cash equivalent? Okay. So we normally cash is defined as the most liquid asset. Cash is 100% liquid. Okay. If you give give cash to someone, they will automatically accept it. Okay. Other things will not be easily cannot be easily exchanged like that. Các bạn đi mua các thứ thì các bạn có thể đưa ví dụ như là tiền mặt thì rất là dễ dàng đúng không? If it is 100% liquid, everyone will accept cash. But if you get something else, like you give rice or you give bread, they will not accept it because they cannot exchange it easily for other things. Okay, so cash is the most liquid asset. Most liquid asset. It is a standard medium of exchange. You can use it for anything. You can convert it. It can be converted into anything. That means you can use it to buy anything. Okay. It's the basis of measuring and accounting for all other items. Okay, we measure everything in terms of cash. We measure everything in terms of cash. Everything we measure in dollar, in dong, in euro, etc. It is a current asset. Example would be coin, currency, or available funds on deposit at the bank. Fund deposit at the bank, that means checking account. Các bạn có nhìn thấy chữ COVID không? And saving account. Okay. Checking account and saving account. Then you have money order. Money order là gì hả các bạn? What is money order?
Phiếu chuyển tiền.
Okay, phiếu chuyển tiền. Okay, it can be money order, phiếu chuyển tiền. It can be postal order or bank order. Okay, that is used to pay a specific amount, a set amount to a third party. Okay, this is các bạn ví dụ các bạn nào ở vùng quê chẳng hạn, bố mẹ muốn gửi tiền lên Hà Nội mà em không có bank account thì bố mẹ có thể ra post office để gửi một cái postal order to pay a specified amount to your name. Okay, to you, that means you are the third party. Okay, or your parent can go to the bank and send a bank order to you. Okay, so that is used to pay a specified amount to you, to a third party. Người ta gọi là lệnh phiếu hay là phiếu chuyển tiền. Phiếu chuyển tiền là postal order, hay là bank order là lệnh phiếu. Certified check. Certified check là gì? Check là gì đã nào? What is a check? Personal check. Ví dụ personal check. Check là gì? Người ta tiếng Việt gọi là gì các bạn?
Séc.
Séc hay là ngân phiếu đúng không? Ngân phiếu hay là séc. Personal check, that means you have a checking account and you write check to pay money to a third party, and that person can cash the check at their bank or at other bank. Okay, at any bank, they can cash the check if you write a check to them. Okay, so personal check can be a cross personal check. You can know the difference between cross check versus bearer check. Cross check and bearer check. Yeah, bearer check has no name on it. Okay. Thế còn what about a certified check? What is it? Certified check is a kind of check, a form of check but the bank verifies. Bank verifies that there is sufficient fund in existence in the account to cover the check in the time at the time the check is written. Okay, cashier check is a check guaranteed by bank. Okay, guaranteed by bank and drawn on the bank's own account. Okay, and signed by a cashier. Okay, why it's named cashier check? Because it's signed by a cashier. Okay, and then you have a bank draft. Bank draft là gì? It is a certified check. Okay, it is certified check, but the bank will set aside the fund until the bank draft is used. Bank draft that means a bank check. Okay, a bank check. Certified check is when the bank set aside the fund until the bank draft is used. For example, if you are doing an ACCA course, you know ACCA, you have to know by now. ACCA, anyone who's doing ACCA. Ví dụ các bạn đang học ACCA chẳng hạn, bạn muốn trả tiền cho ACCA, okay, for the exam fee, okay, you want to pay for exam fee. So you go to HSBC, okay, like or Standard or Charter, and you buy a bank draft, okay, in a certain sum of money, okay, certain sum of money, the bank draft, and you send it to ACCA, and the ACCA can take the money from the bank anytime. Are you okay? Sao hả em? Nghĩa là khi em ra đến HSBC hay là Standard and Charter thì người ta sẽ, khi em mua cái bank draft đó thì người ta sẽ set aside cái fund đó để trả cho ACCA. Okay. Checking bank draft, saving account and checking account. Okay.
Bank draft.
Bank draft. Bank draft. Bank draft like a bank check. Okay. Check là bình thường là check viết trên tài khoản, drawn từ tài khoản của mình, còn bank draft là drawn từ tài khoản của chính ngân hàng đó và ngân hàng sẽ set aside the money, okay, the money to pay for example, you buy for to pay to ACCA for exam fee, okay, so you buy the bank draft from the bank and send it to ACCA, okay, and the ACCA will take and can take the money immediately from the bank. And saving account là khoản tiết kiệm. Okay. Tài khoản tiết kiệm sometimes, yeah, normally it's cash. Okay. Reporting cash and additionally, there are certain things it's also considered as cash equivalent. Okay, cash equivalent. Các khoản tương đương tiền. It includes short-term, highly liquid investments that are both readily convertible to cash and so near in maturity that they present insignificant risk of changes in value, normally less than 3 months. And it includes normally what we call the money market fund. Money market instrument or money market fund. Okay. Can you give some example? So this is negotiable instrument. You can sell it in very short term, okay? And there is little risk in the change in the value of the instrument. Okay? Can you give me some example? What is cash equivalent? Các bạn có thể lấy ví dụ được không? Now, it's short-term, highly negotiable instrument and short-term, highly liquid investment. Normally, it's short-term investment that can be readily convertible to cash. That is negotiable instrument and so near in their maturity that they present insignificant risk in changes in value. That means very little risk, okay? Very little risk with the instrument or the fund. Can you name it? Can you name it for me? Can you give me some example? Example would be government bond, commercial paper, and money market fund. Because you can, normally it's short term in nature, less than 3 months, and you can sell it very quickly. Okay, you can sell anytime. Government bond is when you lend money to the government, you can buy, you can get back the money very easily, buy and sell very quickly. Okay, commercial paper is like you lend money, for example, in Vietnam, Vietcombank. A very credit worthy, okay, very good credit company. When Vietcombank sell a commercial, not a commercial paper, it's called bank bill. Hay là when, say for example, EVN, okay, sell a commercial bill, commercial paper for company, bank bill for bank. This is good credit company, good credit bank. Those paper is considered as very highly liquid and very little risk. Okay, and therefore it can be cashed anytime, and we consider it as you lend to the company or the bank in a very short period of time, and they are very good credit company. Okay, and therefore you can cash it, you can sell it anytime, or you can convert it into cash very quickly. So we consider it as cash equivalent. Okay, cash equivalent. And money market fund. Money market fund is the money invested in money market instrument, and it can be used as check. Okay? Can be used as check. You can write check on it. Money market fund. Okay. Bởi vì các bạn biết là nếu mà nó là long term, short term thì chúng ta gọi là money market, okay? Thì chúng ta gọi là money market. Long term chúng ta gọi là capital market. Okay. So money market fund is the fund used to invest in money market instrument where you can write check. Okay, if you can write check on it, so it's available on demand. Okay, and therefore it's considered as cash equivalent. Nhưng mà các bạn nên nhớ có những instrument short instrument like CD for example, it's cash deposit, okay, certificate of deposit, you deposit with the bank. However, it sometimes it's not considered as cash. Sometimes, why? Because you cannot cash it without penalty. Okay, you cannot withdraw the money immediately. It's not available on demand, and therefore it's not considered as cash. Restricted cash. Companies segregate restricted cash from regular cash. Okay, it's excluded from cash. Okay, Example, restricted for planned expansion, retirement of long-term debt, and compensating balances. Okay. So the restricted cash is the cash you put away for a purpose. For a purpose. Okay, so it's excluded. It's excluded. You can include it, and then you have to deduct it. Okay, it's excluded from regular cash. So it's restricted for planned expansion, retirement of long-term debt. Thì những cái này 1 và 2 này chúng ta gọi là gì các bạn? If you restricted the cash for planned expansion or you restricted the cash for retirement of long-term debt, how do we call it? Cái này các bạn biết rồi, planned expansion chúng ta để tiền ra để phát triển về cơ sở vật chất trong tương lai, hoặc là chúng ta set aside the money để retire long-term debt. Thì những cái này trong, nếu mà if it is for a long, it can be for short-term purpose or for long-term purpose. For long-term purpose thì chúng ta sẽ gọi là gì hả các bạn? Cả lớp các bạn. Cả lớp. Nếu mà chúng ta restricted for planned expansion thì chúng ta sẽ gọi nó là gì?
Investment.
Cả lớp các bạn, cô hỏi đấy. I insist that you answer this question.
Long-term investment.
Gọi là gì các bạn? Long term purpose chúng ta gọi là gì nhỉ? Bạn nào vừa nói nhỉ? Cô nghe không rõ.
Long term investment.
Okay, long term investment. Okay. And we have compensating balance. Okay, and we could have compensating balance is the money you put away to support existing borrowing arrangement. Okay. Why? When you borrow money, some bank ask you to have to keep some money in the bank account as a compensating balance to support the borrowing arrangement. Okay, you must maintain. Okay, you must maintain certain amount of money in the bank to support the borrowing arrangement. Okay, so if it is for long term, it's also long term investment. If it is short term, okay, only short term thì nó sẽ là cash and cash equivalent. But it's also segregated. You have to segregate. Okay, you have to segregate it. Example here, cash and cash equivalent. Cash and cash equivalent. As of March the 15th. Nào, các bạn nhớ hộ cô, chúng ta chỉ segregate những cái nào mà nó lớn vào amount thôi nhé. Những cái nào lớn amount, còn những cái mà nó nhỏ thì chúng ta có thể we don't need to segregate it out. Okay. Cash and cash equivalent as of March 31st 15 and 31st of March 14 include restricted cash and bank balance. Restricted cash and bank balance of this amount respectively. The restrictions are primary account of cash and bank balance held as irrecoverable fund, okay, controlled by the company. Trust fund, okay, irrevocable trust controlled by the company, held as margin deposit as guarantees. Deposit against guarantee. Okay, so the purpose of this restricted cash is deposit against a guarantee. Okay, so you can have many purposes. Okay, if you set aside for purpose, you should segregate it out. Bank overdraft, cái này là thù chi. Thù chi khi nào thì chúng ta when we going to have a bank overdraft?
Khi mà mình rút ra số tiền nhiều hơn mà mình có.
Okay, when the company write a check more than the amount in its cash account, and then generally when it write check, you have $100, but you write check say $500, then the bank account will go to negative of 400. Okay, that is a bank overdraft. Okay, normally the company can make an arrangement for overdraft facility. You as student, sometimes you want to overdraft, but you overdraw account, but you cannot do that. Only the company has the overdraft facility with the bank, then they can have the bank in overdraft. Ví dụ các bạn đi ngân hàng mà muốn có thấu chi thì không bao giờ được. Nó phải có cái arrangement for overdraft facility. Okay. Generally, it's reported as current liability. Yeah, it's current liability. But if you have this the other account in the same bank, okay, you have the other account in the same bank, and it's the overdraft include as component of cash if the overdraft are repayable on demand. And are an integral part of the company cash management. That means you can netting up. Okay, that means you can setting up. Offset, you can offset. If that is part of the company cash management and you have other cash account in the same bank. Okay, so overdraft in current liability, normally in current liability. What items are not considered as cash and cash equivalent? Okay, and non-cash item. What are non-cash? Cash considered as cash. Okay, if it is unrestricted, report as cash. If restricted, identify and classify as current or non-current, depending on the purpose for long-term or for short-term. Okay, depending on short-term or long-term purpose. Petty cash and change fund, it is cash and reported as cash. Petty cash là những cái tiền vụn vặt mà để chi tiêu for the office expense, small office expense like for stamp, for tea or coffee. Yeah, you can keep a petty cash fund, okay, and it's considered as cash. Short-term paper, it's cash. Short-term paper is cash equivalent. Investment with maturity less than 3 months, often combined with cash. Okay, it's often combined with cash because it has maturity less than 3 months. Short-term paper, short-term investment, investment with maturity from 3 to 12 months. Okay? So if short-term paper, if you have short-term paper that mature within 3 to 12 months, you consider it as short-term investment. Okay? Post-dated check and IOU. Post-dated check là gì? What is a post-dated check? Post-dated check, that means somebody give you a check. Okay, give you a check, you deposit with the bank. You can deposit it with the bank, but you can only cash it. Okay, you can only cash it after some date in the future. For example, today is the 31st of December 21. Okay, you got a check. You got a post-dated check. The check is dated on 15th of January 22. That means you can only cash it. Okay, you can only make it cash, deposit with the bank, and take out the money after the 15th of January 22. So that is considered as as a kind of receivable. Okay, it's not cash. IOU, that means you lend someone money and they give you, this is normally a small amount, and they give you an IOU note. Okay, an IOU note. IOU. That means IOU note. Okay, and this is normally considered as receivable, and it's assumed to be collectible. Travel advances are assumed to be collected from the employee or deducted from their salary. Some manager may travel and they can take some travel advance. So they were going to reimburse you back through their salaries, and it's also considered as receivable. Postage on hand or stamp or in postage meter is considered as prepaid expense, and it classified as office supplies inventory. Bank overdraft, cash. If no offsetting allowed, it's current liability. Compensating balance, it's cash and separately classified as deposit maintained as compensating balance. Okay. So it classified as current or non-current in the statement of financial position and disclosed separately in note detail of the arrangement. Moving on, account receivable. Okay, next on is receivable. Receivable is claims held against customer and other for money, goods, or services. So you have a claim against your customer or others for good or services good or services provided or money lent. Okay, it can be an oral promises of the purchaser to pay for good or services sold. In this case, you got the account receivable. Okay, or it can be a written promises to pay a certain sum of money on the specified future date. In that case, you have a note receivable. Okay. Okay. So receivable is someone is owing you. Okay, they owe you something. They owe you something. Okay. For account receivable, you expect to receive money because you provide the work. Okay, you provide the work, you provide the good or the services. Okay, and this is if you provide goods, you got trade receivable. If you provide goods or services, for provision of goods or services. Okay. Or you can have non-trade. Bút toán là gì các bạn? Các bạn còn nhớ không? For trade receivable, when you provide goods or services on account, bút toán của các bạn sẽ là gì? Cả lớp, các bạn không trả lời được cô à? When you provide goods or services on account. Thì bút toán của bạn sẽ là gì?
Account receivable.
Nói to lên, cô không nghe rõ.
Debit account receivable.
Debit account receivable and credit.
Revenue.
Okay, revenue, sales or service revenue. Okay. For other purpose, you can have for other purpose. For other purpose, you could have non-trade receivable. Okay? Not for the purpose of providing good or service, you got non-trade receivable. Okay. For non-receivable, it's involve written promises to pay a certain sum of money on specified future date. Okay, and they normally involve interest. Ví dụ các bạn vay tiền, cho vay tiền, bạn sẽ debit note receivable and credit cash. Or you can accept a note for sales, so you debit credit cash or credit sales. Okay. Or if you extend the time that the customer may pay, you can debit note receivable and credit account receivable. Okay. Are you okay with that? If you lend money to someone, you debit note receivable, credit cash. Or you can accept a note for the sale, so you debit note receivable, credit sales. Or if they owe you on account and they want to extend the time, they cannot pay on time, so they extend the time of the account receivable by debiting note receivable, credit account receivable. Are you okay?
Yes.
Non-trade receivable can be advances to supplier, to officer or employee, advances to subsidiaries, deposit paid to cover potential damages or losses, deposit paid as a guarantee to performance of performance or payment, dividend or interest receivable. Okay, or it can be claims against insurance company for casualty sustained, defendant under suit, government bodies for tax fund, common carrier for damage or lost good, creditor or for return damage or lost good, customer returnable item, etc. Okay, for other purpose than sale of goods or services, we got non-trade receivable. Okay, so this is current asset of Nokia. You see account receivable, net of allowance for doubtful account, and for Heineken you see trade and other receivable here. Trade here means trade receivable and non-trade receivable. Recognition of account receivable. When we're going to put account receivable in the book, account receivable generally arises as part of revenue arrangement. Okay, the revenue recognition principle indicate that a company should recognize revenue when it satisfies its performance obligation by transferring the good or service to customer. Okay, so you can recognize revenue when you done the performance application, when you satisfy the performance application. That means you have delivered the good or the services. That means transfer the good or the service to customer. That is when the time you recognize the revenue and also the corresponding account receivable, if it is on account. Okay. For example, Lululemon Athletica Inc. sell a yoga outfit to Jennifer Buren for $100 on account. Okay, sell 100 on account. The yoga outfit is transferred when Jennifer obtains control of this outfit. Okay, so when you transfer the ownership, okay, transfer the ownership of the outfit, yoga outfit, to the customer, that is when you make the sale. When this change in control occurs, Lululemon should recognize an account receivable and sale revenue. Okay, the entry would be debit account receivable $100 and credit sale revenue $100. Indicator that it has transferred to Jennifer, and Jennifer has obtained control of the yoga outfit. Okay, Lululemon has right to payment from the customer. Lululemon has passed the legal title of the to the customer. Lululemon has transferred physical possession of the goods, and Lululemon has no longer a significant risk and reward of ownership of the good, and Jennifer has accepted the asset. In the revenue recognition, we have to measure the transaction price. Okay, transaction price. Or how we going to measure the sales and the receivable? We measure it by the consideration. Okay, that company expect to receive from customer in exchange for transferring the goods or services. Cái này các bạn học trong contract law. Đúng không? Chúng ta có contract law khi nào thì chúng ta nhận biết doanh thu là khi chúng ta đã we've done our part, we satisfy the performance obligation, and how we can only recognize revenue when there is a contract. Okay, that's the first step. The second step is you identify what are the performance obligation under the contract. What we have to do, okay? And then thirdly, we're going to identify the price of the contract, okay? The price of the contract or the consideration, okay? The consideration. Các bạn biết rồi đấy, trong contract thì có này offer, acceptance này, rồi consideration này, okay? Và là validity, bốn cái factor của một con contract. Thì trong một trong những cái factor của một contract chính là cái consideration. Consideration hay là cái price of the contract. Okay. Okay. Contract transaction price is the amount of consideration that company expect to receive from customer in exchange for transferring of goods or services. So we determine the transaction price. What is the price? Is the amount we're going to recognize for revenue and corresponding account receivable. Variable consideration. In some cases, the price of the good or service is dependent on future event. This future event often includes such items as discount, return and allowance, rebates, and performance bonus. Okay. Sometimes we offer them discount, chiết khấu, or we can make them return the return of the goods, or you have to give them some allowance if they are not satisfied with the goods, or you can give them some rebate. Okay, rebate là khi ví dụ như bạn mua một cái máy tính chẳng hạn. For example, you buy a computer and you pay $1,000. Okay, you take the computer now, you pay $1,000 now, but after 1 month the seller will send you $100 for rebate. We call it rebate, okay? Or performance bonus. That means you have to do something else for something additional thing for the same price. Okay. So you can have discount, return and allowance, rebate, and performance bonus. We call it variable consideration. We look at two types of variable consideration, that is discount and return and allowance specifically. Okay. Trade discount hay người ta còn gọi là chiết khấu thương mại. Chiết khấu thương mại versus cash discount. Okay. Trade discount is to avoid discount for the trade discount for like a special customer or for volume, okay, for volume purchase, okay. It is a reduction from list price, okay. It's a reduction from list price. It's shown directly in your invoice, okay. You deduct the price immediately from the invoice. In the invoice, it show the deducted price already, okay. It's a reduction from list price. It's a good deal, okay, good deal. You can keep trade discount for volume purchase or for special customer. For example, here you give 10% trade discount for new retail store customer, okay. To avoid frequent changes in the catalog, to alter price for different quantity purchase, or to hide the true invoice price from the competitors. So does it show? It does not show in the record. It's good deal. Okay, it's a good deal, and it's not show in record, not in the invoice. Okay, and in the account of the purchaser, it also not show. Okay, cash discount is also called sales discount. It offer to induce to make you make prompt payment, to make you to make payment early. Okay, to encourage early payment. Okay, early payment. For example, here on invoice, you see the payment term are 2/10 and over 30. Okay. Terms such as 2/10 and over 30, or 2/10 end of month, or net 30 end of month. This is term of credits. When you make sales on account, you often give a terms of credit to customer. Now, anyone can explain to me 2/10 and over 30. What does it mean?
2/10 means that when you pay within 10 days, you have 2% discount. And
exactly. And the net, all the other ones, the net amount is due in
30 days.
Okay, very good. So if you pay early, that means within 20 days, you are given 2% discount. You can deduct 2% discount. Okay. You can account for cash discount using the gross method or the net method. We look at the gross method and the net method now. For example, here, you make a sales of $10,000, term 2/10 and over 30. Under the gross method, you assume that the customer will not take the discount when you record the sale. When you record the sale, you record as it may probably that the customer will not take the discount. So you record it at the gross amount of 10,000. Debit to account receivable 10,000, credit sale revenue 10,000. Whereas under the net method, you assume customer will take the discount and you record the receivable at the net amount. Okay. So you debit to account receivable 9,800 and credit sale revenue 9,800. You deduct 2% in advance. Okay. Now, the payment of 4,000 of sale receipt within the discount period. Okay. So under the In the gross method, you're going to debit cash for the net amount received. That means 4,000 less 2% times 4,000. Okay, so you receive only 3,920 and you give a discount to customer of 80 and credit account receivable of 4,000. Can somebody tell me what type of account is sale discount? What type of account is sale discount? Hello các bạn. What type of account is sale discount?
Asset.
Are you sure?
Contra asset.
This is contra revenue account. Các bạn có cái công thức là net sales thì bằng sale trừ đi sale discount trừ đi sale returns and allowance. Có đúng không? So sale discount is a contra revenue account. Deduct from sales. Okay. Under the gross method, you deduct the sale discount from sales. Okay. So you debit cash for the amount you receive, debit sale discount, and credit account receivable. Whereas under the net method, you debit cash 3,920, the amount received, and credit account receivable 3,920. Because the account receivable here, you already deduct the sale discount, the discount already. Okay, so you don't have to record sale discount when you receive the money. A payment of 6,000 of sale received after the discount period. Under the gross method, you debit cash, credit account receivable 6,000 because the discount is forgone. It's after the discount period. The discount is forgone. Under the gross method, you don't have to record anything. No discount. Okay. Under the net method, you debit cash 6,000. Credit account receivable 5,880. Remember, the 4,000 above here, the discount already factor in. So you don't record anything. Okay. Here, you receive more than the account receivable you record. So you credit account receivable 5,880, but you also credit an account called sale discount forfeited. We call it, this is the other revenue account. Okay. Sale discount forfeited, other revenue. Because the customer has forgone, okay, forgone the discount. So you record a revenue. Sale return and allowance. Sale return and allowance is a contra revenue account to sale revenue. Okay. Allowance for sale return and allowances is a contra asset account to account receivable. Remember that? Các bạn nhớ sale return and allowance is a deduction. Okay? This is a deduction from sale account. Whereas we also have an allowance for sale return and allowance is a contra to account receivable account. We use both the sale return and allowance for sale return and allowance account is helpful to identify the potential problems associated with inferior merchandise, inefficiency in filling order, or delivery of shipment and mistake. When we make sales and the customer is not satisfied with the good, they can return the good. In that case, you debit the sale return and allowance and credit the account receivable. But in the case you are not sure whether they return or not, you have to use this account, the allowance for sale return and allowances. Okay, you're not sure they return or not return. And let's look at an example. Assume that Max Glass sell Hurricane Glass to Oliver Builder. As part of the sale agreement, Max include a provision that if Oliver is dissatisfied with the product, Max will grant an allowance on the sale price and agree to take the product back. On January the 4th, 2019, Max sell 5,000 Hurricane Glass to Oliver on account. Max will record the sale on account as follows. Debit account receivable 5,000, credit sale revenue 5,000. So the sale is 5,000. And if not satisfied, it will grant an allowance, okay, to take the product back. Okay. Now on January the 1619, sorry, this is the same made on 4th of 19. January 16, Max grant an allowance of 300 to Oliver because some of the grass is defective. The entry to record the transaction is as follows. Debit sale return and allowance 300, credit account receivable 300. Okay, this is when it already grant an allowance of $300 to Oliver. Okay. This one is deduct from sale, and receivable you deduct from receivable. Now on January the 31st, before preparing financial statement, Max estimated an additional of 100 in sale return and allowances will result from the sale to Oliver on January the 1st, 19. You estimate, this is an estimate only, you don't know whether the customer will return the goods or services or not. But you estimate that probably additional 100 will be returned. So an adjusting entry to record this additional allowance is as follows. Debit sale return and allowance 100 and credit allowance for sale return and allowance. This is deduct from account receivable. Okay, contra to account receivable. Time value of money. Theoretically, any revenue after the period of sale is interest revenue. However, company ignore interest revenue related to account receivable because the amount of discount is not usually material in relation to the net income for a period. The profession specifically exclude present value consideration, receivable arising from transaction with customer in the normal course of business, which are due in customary trade term, not exceeding approximately 1 year. Okay, so you exclude from present value consideration for account receivable. So for account receivable, we don't take into account the interest component. Okay. How are these accounts presented on the statement of financial position? On the statement of financial position, we have account receivable. Before we move on, because the period is short, thường là ngắn. No, we don't take into account. Don't take into account present value factor for account receivable. Okay. Now, for account receivable, how we present the account receivable? Okay, present on the statement of financial position. Normally, we take the account receivable less the allowance for doubtful account. So the account receivable is 500. The allowance for doubtful account is 25. So how much is the net account receivable? Hello?
475.
Okay, 475. Because the 475 is the amount we think we will collect. We will be able to collect. The 25 we will not collect. Okay, we will not be able to collect. Yeah. So on the statement of financial position, you see the account receivable 500 less the allowance 25. Net account receivable 475. Okay, expect this is the amount expect to collect in cash. Or we could do this way. We could take the account receivable net allowance 25, give the amount of 475. Now, for example, now we have a credit sales of 100. We debit account receivable 100, credit sale revenue 100. So we debit sale, credit account receivable. Sorry, we debit account receivable here and credit sale 100. So how much is the account receivable now? Now account receivable is 600. Okay. Now we collect 333 on account. Collect có nghĩa là chúng ta nhận được tiền đấy, ok? Thì chúng ta sẽ giảm account receivable hay tăng account receivable các bạn? Now we collect 300. Giảm hay tăng?
Giảm hả?
Okay, we reduce account receivable by 333. Okay, account receivable reduce because we receive the money. Okay, and we collect cash. We collect cash. Now the ending balance for account receivable is $267. We need to increase the allowance for our bad debt expense. Okay, for example, adjustment. We need to make an adjustment of $15 for estimated bad debt. So we make the entry. Debit bad debt expense, credit allowance for doubtful account, $15. Debit bad debt, credit allowance. Credit allowance. We increase the allowance by $15. This is the estimate bad debt. Okay. So the allowance now is $40. Now allowance is $40. So what is the net account receivable now các bạn? 267 trừ đi. Trừ đi bao nhiêu?
40 ạ.
Trừ đi 40 nhé. Correct. Less 40. So the net amount is 227. Write-up of uncollectible account of 10. Có hỏi các bạn một chút. When we make the adjustment for bad debt. When we make the adjustment for bad debt here. Debit bad debt expense, credit allowance. Thường là khi nào?
Khi mà mình cung cấp dịch vụ cho người ta thì mình ước tính luôn.
Đúng. Thường là khi mà mình có when we have the account receivable arise thì mình cũng estimate the amount uncollectible luôn. We estimate the amount when we record the sale and the receivable, we also make the adjustment for estimated bad debt. Thường thì nó là end of the period. End of the period, after making the sales, after recognizing the receivable, we also recognize the bad debt. And it's not the customer. This is estimated bad debt. It's not the customer who we don't know who do not pay. We do not know by now who doesn't pay. Okay, we estimate, we expect the amount of bad debt only. Okay, when one of the customer assume one customer not pay. This is when we know, okay, we know exactly the customer will not pay. Okay, Mr. A or Mr. B or Mr. C, okay, not going to pay. Okay, he has gone bankruptcy. Okay, thì chúng ta phải làm gì các bạn? What do we have to do?
Write off.
Okay, we write off the account. We remove it from the account. Write off means we remove. Okay, remove from the account. It no longer exists. We remove it from account receivable, and we also remove the allowance. Okay. Okay, so we debit allowance for doubtful account 10 and credit account receivable 10. Okay, this is the entry. Debit the allowance and credit the account receivable. The net account receivable lúc này bằng bao nhiêu? What is the net account receivable now?
$257.
257 to the
30.
less 30. Yeah, sorry. Less 30 equal to 227. So account receivable, net account receivable, is it changed? Do we change the net account receivable from the previous line? Previous line, net account receivable, 227. Now it's also 227. We're not changing the account receivable. Why?
Bởi vì mình dùng allowance for doubtful account là cái tài khoản trung gian.
Because the account receivable reduced by 10, but the allowance also reduced by 10. Why? Because the allowance, okay, the allowance, sorry. The allowance has factor in the fact that some person will not pay. Will not pay. Okay. That means when we have the account allowance of 40, that means we have already, okay, we already estimated for someone who will not pay the amount. Okay, so when they do not pay, we remove the allowance and remove the account receivable, and therefore the net account receivable will not change. We write off, we not change the account receivable because we already factor in the bad debt. Okay, we already factor in when we make the estimation. Okay. So in the account, in the balance sheet, we will see the net account receivable of 227, net of the allowance 30. Okay. Valuation of account receivable, uncollectible account receivable, record credit losses as debit to bad debt expense or uncollectible account expense. So the uncollectible account is the bad debt. You cannot collect it. So it's a loss to the company, and therefore it's an expense. It's a loss. It's a loss. A loss because you cannot collect it. You cannot collect. Okay, you cannot collect. It's a loss of credit, and therefore it's an expense. Okay. Customer may or may not pay you for many reasons. Okay, for many reasons. They go bankruptcy, they have difficulties, they don't want to pay. Many reasons. Okay. Thường thì các bạn biết là trước khi chúng ta lên credit thì chúng ta cũng muốn avoid cái bad debt expense này. Avoid bằng cách nào các bạn có biết không? How we can avoid the bad debt expense?
Buy sale discount.
We avoid by normally we look at the credit history before extending credit. Before we extend credit, we have to look at the credit history of the customer. Okay? Like customer, like they have credit rating that is good or bad, yeah. And look at the price. Okay, look at the price. And if the customer often pay late, okay, you will see there may be some problem. Okay, and however, bad debt is a normal and necessary risk of doing business on credit. Okay. It's a normal way, normal and necessary. Okay, you have to extend credit to stimulate sale. Otherwise, you lose sale because you don't make sales on credit. Two methods of accounting for uncollectible account: the direct write-off method and the allowance method. Phương pháp nào? What method is allowed under IFRS?
Allowance.
Okay, only the allowance. Okay, IFRS. This one not allowed, not IFRS. Direct write-off method. Theoretically, it's not an IFRS because it's theoretically deficient. Okay, it fails to record expenses as income and receivable not stated at cash realizable value, and it's not appropriate when uncollectible account is material. Tại sao lại nói như vậy? Như lúc nãy cô nói, khi chúng ta make allowance là khi chúng ta make sales, chúng ta record sale và record receivable thì chúng ta cũng we also make an estimation for bad debt. Okay, but under the direct write-off method, okay, direct write-off method, you make sales here in 2021 sale here, but customer may not pay, may or may not pay. The time period for payment is until 22, and only in 2022, you know the customer will not pay. So you record the bad debt here, okay? You record the bad debt in 2022 because only by that time you know the customer will not pay. That means there is no matching, okay? Okay, no matching. No matching between the sale and the expenses related to the sale. Okay? The bad debt happened long after the sale is made. No matching. Also, the amount you record for receivable at the end of 21 here is not the amount you expected to collect, not the whole amount. You make sale of 1,000. End of 21, the receivable is still 1,000, but the amount you expect to collect is not the 1,000. Okay, so it's not appropriate when the amount uncollectible is material. It's only allow for some small company, not the listed company, not public company. Allowance method, losses are estimated. Losses are estimated before, okay. Allowance, the allowance, the losses are estimated before it happened, before it actually occur, before occur, and it's provide proper matching between the sales and the loss. Okay, so here in 2021 you make sales, so you estimate here, estimate bad debt here, and this is in 2021. In 2022 when the bad debt happened, you write off, okay, when it occur. So it provide proper matching. Okay, it's important, okay, that you have proper matching. And it's required when bad debt are material in amount. And there are two methods of estimating for bad debt. It's percentage of sales and percentage of receivable. Okay? Percentage of sales and percentage of receivable. Percentage of sales. Percentage of sales. You take the, say for example, sale is 1,000. Sale is 1,000, and you estimate bad debt is 2%. Okay, so you're going to debit bad debt 2%, 20, and credit allowance for that, for doubtful account 20. Okay, for the percentage of receivable, I explain in a moment. Okay, the method in a moment. First, we look at the direct write-off method for uncollectible account. When company determine a particular amount to be uncollectible, it charges the loss to bad debt. For example, like December the 10th, Cruise write-off uncollectible 8 million balance. The entry is debit bad debt expense, credit account receivable 8 million. This is violate matching, okay? Not proper matching, violate matching principle, and not allowed, not under IFRS, not IFRS, because you recognize the bad debt not in the same year as the sale. Okay. Allowance method involve estimating uncollectible account at the end of each period. Insure company state receivable on the statement of financial position at their cash realizable value. Company estimate uncollectible account and cash realizable value using information about the past and current event, as well as forecast of future collectibility. For example, recording estimated uncollectible. Assume that Brown Furniture in 19 is first year of operation. Credit sale 1,800,000. Of this amount, 150 uncollected at end of December. The credit customer estimate that 10,000 of this sale will be uncollectible. The adjusting entry to record estimated uncollectible, assuming a zero balance in the allowance. The allowance account is, so you estimate the bad debt is 10,000, so you debit bad debt expense, and instead of credit account receivable, you credit to allowance account. Credit allowance for doubtful account 10,000. So in the account, you show here the account receivable 150 less the allowance of 10,000. 40 represent the cash realizable value of account receivable at the statement date. Recording write-off or uncollectible account when company have exhausted of all means of collecting past due account, the collection appear impossible, the company should write off the account. When you give a trying to collect, now you make phone call, you chasing them, you come to their office, but they still don't pay, you sue them, they still don't pay, then you have to write off. Okay, write off. In the credit card industry, for example, it's standard practice to write off account that is 210 days past due. Ví dụ như là Visa, Mastercard, những công ty này làm gì nhỉ các bạn nhỉ? Hay là American Express? Những công ty này làm gì? Các bạn có biết không? What this company are doing? What they do?
Tiêu trước ạ.
They are credit card company. That means they make the payment service for the customer. Có nghĩa là if you buy, you are customer, okay? And you buy from say Louis Vuitton, okay? Louis Vuitton. You buy some goods and you make payment by credit card. That means the credit card company will make the payment, okay, to the company, and you pay the credit card company after a few months, after 1 month, 20 days, etc., depending. Okay, so the credit card company is the one who make payment for you, okay, and you reimburse them later. Okay, and it's standard practice that they write off after 210 days that you don't pay. Okay, so if you don't pay past due, they're going to write off. The financial vice president of Brown Furniture authorized write off of 1,000 balance owed on Randall PLC on March the 1st. The entry to write off is debit allowance for doubtful account 1,000, credit account receivable 1,000. However, assume on July the 1st, the rental company, the one who doesn't pay, now pay, okay? Who you estimate that you write off them, but they still pay, okay? For example, they reorganize or somehow they got some fund and they pay you, okay? Pay the 1,000 amount that Brown had written off on March the 1st. So this is the entry. You first have to reinstate the account receivable by debiting account receivable, credit allowance for doubtful account, and now you receive debit cash, credit account receivable. Estimating for allowance, basically there are two methods. Percentage of sale is based on the past data to estimate the percentage of sale that result in bad debt. Như lúc nãy cô nói, ví dụ C là 1.000 nhân với 2% chẳng hạn, thì bằng 20 thì bạn sẽ debit bad debt 20, credit allowance 20. This is percentage of sale. Okay, it's based on the sale figure, but you can also estimate the allowance based on percentage of receivable approach. This report estimates the account receivable at cash realizable value. This is the balance sheet approach because you estimate the amount that is collectible. Okay, it can apply this method using a composite rate or aging receivable. Composite rate, that means you take the account receivable, after write-off times the percentage, okay? Or you can use the aging schedule at different rate because the longer the outstanding, the account receivable, the harder to collect the amount, okay? And therefore, the higher the percentage of uncollectible. So you're going to use the aging schedule. That means you age them, you classify them based on the age of the account receivable and apply a different rate. Okay. Classify and use a different rate for different account different aging of account receivable, age of account receivable. For example, here for Winston Company aging schedule, you got balance at December 31st. Now you classify them whether they are under 30 days, 30 to 60 days, 61 to 90 days, 91 to 120 days, and over 120 days. The longer the outstanding, the higher the percentage of uncollectible. Okay, so for under 30 days, yeah, you estimate the amount uncollectible is 0.8%. So you give them a required, you calculate a required allowance, okay, required balance in the allowance by taking 0.8 times 345. Okay? 30 to 60 days, you estimate based on historical. Okay, this is based on historical base. Okay, so the percentage is historical base. Okay, you estimate basing on historical. So 30 to 60 days, 4%, you estimate uncollectible. So you multiply by the amount, 115 here, that give you a required allowance of 4,600. 60 to 90 days, 18,000 here. You multiply by 15%, that give you required allowance of 2,700. 9120 days, 20%. It's harder to collect, okay, because it's very long overdue. Okay, 2,800 over 120 days, nearly very hard to collect now. 25%. So total annual balance of required allowance is 26,610. You keep the entry if the beginning balance, assuming that the allowance account is zero balance, you're going to debit bad debt expense 26,610 and credit allowance for doubtful account 26,610. So this is simply the added of all group. Okay, each group has a projected percentage of uncollectible. This is you add up all group, and if the allowance has zero balance, okay, you debit. This is the required balance in the allowance again. Okay, so here the allowance again. Beginning balance is zero and required is 26,610. So your bad debt must be 26,610. Now, suppose that the allowance account already a credit balance of 800 before adjustment. Allowance for doubtful account, it has credit balance 800 and your required balance is the balance you estimated that you will not be able to collect. You have to deduct it from the account receivable. This is the required balance you estimated by aging the account receivable. Okay, so this is the amount you estimate you will not be able to collect. Okay, you will not be able to collect. So required balance is 26,610. Your beginning balance is 800. So you need to make an adjustment of 20. Bad debt is 25,810. The credit balance, that means the last period you overestimate your bad debt. Now you deduct it from the amount. Okay, so you debit bad debt expense 25,000 810, and credit allowance 25,810. The 26,000 is the target balance. Okay, target balance 26,610. Estimate. Let's look at and therefore your account receivable. Your account receivable is the balance now is 547,000. You have to deduct allowance 26,610. That give you a net account receivable. You calculate yourself. Okay, yeah. Example. Duncan SA report the following financial information before adjustment. Account receivable is 100,000. Sorry, 100,000. Allowance is 2,000. Credit. Sale revenue all on credit 900,000. Sale return and allowance is 50,000. Okay. Prepare the journal entry to record bad debt expense. Assume bad debt is 5% of account receivable and 5% of account receivable, but allowance for doubtful account already have 1,500 debit balance. How we do it? 5%. Bad debt 5%. Account receivable is 100,000. Times 100,000 account receivable. Chúng ta phải nhân với bao nhiêu phần trăm các bạn? Bao nhiêu?
5%.
Times 5%. So the estimated uncollectible account is 5,000. Okay, 5,000. You got an allowance account. Target balance phải bằng bao nhiêu? Target balance phải bằng bao nhiêu các bạn?
5,000.
5,000. Okay, 5,000. Target balance. It already has beginning balance of 2,000. Okay, 2,000. So bad debt expense is 3,000. Okay, so you debit bad debt expense 3,000 and credit allowance for doubtful account 3,000. Now suppose you got allowance debit 1.500. That means you underestimate your allowance last year. Okay, today target is 5,000. Okay, target is 5,000. So your bad debt is 6,500. Okay, so you debit bad debt expense 6,500, credit allowance 6,500. Not receivable. Not receivable is supported by a formal promissory note. That means the borrower should sign the note. Okay, it's a written promise to pay a certain sum of money at a specific future date. It's a negotiable instrument. Okay, negotiation instrument. That means you can resell. You can sell the note. Okay, the maker sign in favor of the payee, and it has interest involved. Interest bearing, it has stated rate of interest, or zero interest bearing, interest included in face amount. Originally, note receivable originate from customer who need to extend payment period for an outstanding receivable. So if you make sales on credit to customer, but when the account receivable mature, that means when it comes to the collection date, they cannot pay. Okay, so they extend the payment by debiting the note receivable and credit the account receivable. And from that date, there will be interest on it. For high-risk customer, you can debit note receivable and credit sale. Okay, you make sales. Okay. Loans to employee, to subsidiary, or sale of PPE or lending transaction. The majority of note is lending. You lend someone to someone. That means you debit note receivable and credit cash. You lend to someone. For long-term note, you record it at present value of cash collected or to be collected. Now, if the state, now long-term note, there will be interest, the market interest, okay? Market interest. That means the interest required, okay? This is required by you, by the market, okay? And the stated interest. Stated interest is the interest on the face of the note, on face of the note, and it's going to use to calculate the coupon, okay, the coupon, the interest payment. If the stated rate is equal to market rate, the note issued at face value. If the stated rate is greater than the market rate, that market is require a rate lower, then it's issued at a premium. If the stated rate is smaller than market rate, that the required rate is higher than the stated rate, the note will be issued at a discount. Okay, all of this we done in FA2. Okay, and but if we have time and we have time at the end of the course, we're going to do a little bit on bond. Okay, similar to bond. Okay, bond. In the last lecture of FA2, FA1, okay? Short-term note report at face value less the allowance. And short-term normally involve simple interest only, okay? Simple interest. And it's always record at allowance, less allowance. It could be interest bearing or not, is zero interest bearing. Okay, zero interest bearing. Zero interest bearing, that means we deduct the money from the face value when we first issue it. Okay. Presentation and analysis, general rules in another thing I want to, simple interest for short-term note is the interest is calculated as follows. Interest equal to principal amount times the interest rate times the time, number of months, divided by 12. Okay, for short-term note, you use this formula. General rules in classifying receivable as segregate and report carrying amount of different categories of receivable. Indicate receivable classified as current or non-current in the statement of financial position. Appropriately offset the valuation account for receivable that are impaired, including discussion of individual and collectibility determine impairment. Okay, so if if the receivable are impaired in value, you should record impairment. Okay. Disclose the fair value of receivable in such a way that permit it to be compared with the carrying value. Disclose information to assess the credit risk inherent in receivable, and disclose receivable pledge as collateral. And that's the end. Do you have any question, anything you need to clarify?
Em thưa cô là hồi lúc nãy đầu giờ là mọi người bàn lập nhóm để làm gì đấy?
Lập nhóm để cô định là thay thế phần assignment cho phần small test, vì cô đã rất suy nghĩ về cái này, nhưng cô nghĩ là làm small test nó không đảm bảo công bằng cho các em, nên cô định làm assignment và là sẽ làm trên group of 3 students in a group. You can group with anyone you want. Okay. Và các bạn làm bài trong nhóm không quá 3 người nhé, chỉ được 3 người, nếu 4 người cô sẽ trừ điểm nhé.
Em thưa cô, nếu mà mình không quen ai thì ghép nhóm kiểu gì ạ?
Nếu em không quen ai nhé thì em từ bây giờ đến tuần sau các em cứ cố tìm nhóm đi. Thế xong nếu mà không có gì thì write trên Google Classroom cho cô. Cô sẽ, những bạn nào chưa có nhóm, cô sẽ group các em lại. Được không? Ok.
Được ạ.
Ok. Còn câu hỏi gì về bài này nữa không?
Không ạ.
Ok.